At exactly 7:58 a.m., something unusual happened outside the doors of the Langston Grand Hotel. A man got low stand. A woman nobody ever noticed became unforgettable. He was tall, mid-60s, European, clearly confused, clutching a printed map and spinning in place like a compass gone mad. Guest swept past him, too busy with checkouts and Uber pickups to stop. Bellhops glanced over, then kept moving, except her. She stepped forward, calm, invisible in her burgundy housekeeping uniform. Mid-40s, maybe 50, a cleaning cloth in one hand, a spray bottle in the other. Just another hotel worker until she opened her mouth. ¿Está buscando la entrada del centro de convenciones? Está justo al otro lado del vestíbulo, detrás del mostrador de información. ¿Quiere que lo acompañe? Perfect Castilian Spanish. The man's face lit up. Relief washed over him. She gestured warmly, pointed, then even walked a few steps to guide him. Not rushed, not robotic, like it mattered. 30 feet away. Ethan Langston, CEO of the luxury hotel chain, had just stepped out of his car and was checking emails. But that voice stopped him cold. Not just because it was fluent, because it belonged. Spanish, from a janitor, spoken like a native diplomat. He looked up, saw her, watched as she waved goodbye to the guest, then turned back to her cart as if nothing happened. Then, without hesitation, she greeted a concierge in Arabic, and moments later responded to a French couple asking about early breakfast hours with flawless Parisian French. Ethan blinked. What the hell did I just witness? This wasn't just someone multilingual. This was talent he'd been blind to. He started walking, not toward his meeting, toward her. "Excuse me," he said. She turned, startled but poised. "Yes. Sí, that was Spanish, right?" She nodded, gently. "And Frank, and who are you?" She smiled faintly. "Just housekeeping." "Sí. But Ethan Langston suddenly knew. She was anything but just anything. Ethan Langston wasn't the kind of man who stopped walking. Not for traffic. Not for protests. Not even for fire alarms. He moved fast, thought faster, and ran a $2 billion hospitality empire like a war general. But today, he froze because a janitor just spoke Spanish, Arabic, and French like she'd grown up in all three places at once. He studied hair, mid-40s, tired eyes, calloused hands, no badge beyond housekeeping, a cleaning cart beside her loaded with spray bottles, rags, and a dented mop bucket. She shouldn't have stood out. She wasn't meant to. But here she was, outshining every concierge he'd ever hired. She gave him a polite, neutral smile, the kind employees use when they're afraid eye contact might get them in trouble. He stepped closer. "How many languages do you speak?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, glanced down, then back up. 9. Sí. Fluently. He blinked. 9? Yes. Sí. She said it like she was confirming how many towels were in a room. No pride. No hesitation. Just truth. "May I ask your name?" "Lucia Morales." He repeated it under his breath like a name he should have already known. "You've worked here long?" "Almost 10 years." Ethan's brow furrowed. "And in all that time, no one's noticed?" Lucia gave the faintest shrug. "Not many ask." And that line hit harder than he expected. Not many ask. Not many care. He looked back toward the hotel entrance. Executives in tailored suits rushed by. A valet laughed at something on his phone. No one noticed the woman who just helped 3 guests in 3 languages in under 2 minutes. He turned back to her. "Lucia, do you have a few minutes?" She blinked. The request didn't match her world. "Now? I'd like to talk. Just a conversation." "My office." Lucia hesitated, not because she was afraid, but because it was unfamiliar. Being seen was unfamiliar. "Still." She nodded. "All right." Ethan gestured toward the elevator. As they walked inside, silence settled between them. He didn't break it. Neither did she. But one thing was clear. This woman wasn't just cleaning rooms. She'd just cleaned the fog off his own damn eyes. The elevator ride to the 27th floor was quiet. Lucia stood straight, hands clasped. Her uniform still smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant. Ethan Langston stole glances at her, trying to reconcile what he'd just seen with the resume she likely never submitted. When the doors slid open, his assistant did a double take. Ethan said nothing, just nodded for them to pass. His office was lined with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive silence. A framed world map dominated the far wall dots, marking properties from Dubai to Berlin. On the sideboard, espresso cups, investor awards, and a photo of his late mother, who used to run a motel in El Paso. "Please." "Hey, steward, have a seat." And Lucia sat carefully, palms in her lap. She didn't look intimidated, just alert, like someone used to reading rooms fast. He took a seat opposite her. "Lucia," he began, "I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't expect this conversation today." And she gave a small nod. "Waiting. I watched you help 3 guests in 3 languages. That's not common. That's incredible. So I need to ask, how does someone like you end up cleaning floors?" Lucia paused. Then, simply, she asked, "Do you have time for the truth?" Ethan leaned back. "I wouldn't have asked otherwise." She exhaled through her nose. "I was born in Queens. Parents were immigrants, my mother from Honduras, my father from Morocco. We spoke 3 languages at home. I loved languages. Obsessed. Really studied them. Memorized accents. I got a scholarship to NYU. Ethan leaned forward. "I was halfway through a linguistics degree when my sister got into a car accident. She was 16, paralyzed. I dropped out to help my mom. Then my mom got sick. Dad left. So I stayed. I worked." Her voice didn't tremble. She wasn't telling a sob story. She was stating facts. "I did tutoring, cleaning jobs, front desks, whatever allowed me to bring in money and still get my sister to her appointments. Eventually, I found this job, night shifts, steady pay, good benefits." And the languages?" Ethan asked. She smiled faintly. "Never stopped learning. Podcasts, newspapers, library textbooks. I'd teach myself a new one every few years. It was the one part of me I never gave up." Silence fell. Heavy, respectful. Ethan looked out at the city skyline, then back at her. "You know," he said quietly, "I've interviewed people with 3 degrees who couldn't do what you just did in the lobby." Lucia didn't respond. She wasn't looking for praise. Most people saw the uniform and assumed she was used to it. But not today. Today, someone finally asked, 20 minutes after Lucia left his office. Ethan Langston was still sitting at his desk, staring at the floor. He had a meeting in 10 minutes with 4 executives from the company's new Lisbon property. A big deal. New territory. New partners. Sensitive timing. And their Portuguese translator had just canceled. He checked his phone. No replacement. No time. His mind jumped back to the woman who'd just walked out with her mop cart. Having casually listed 9 fluent languages, like she was naming old friends. Was Portuguese one of them? He didn't hesitate. 2 minutes later, he was back in the staff hallway on the lower floor. The air smelled like floor wax and fresh linens. He spotted Lucia restocking towels outside the utility closet. "Sorry to bother you again," he said, slightly out of breath. She turned. "You came down here? I need a favor," he said. "Small meeting. Important guests. Portuguese speakers. Can you help?" Lucia blinked once. "Portuguese? Yes. She gave the smallest nod. "I can do that. No apanix. No brag. Just calm competence." 10 minutes later, in conference room 12B, 4 Portuguese executives sat at the long glass table checking their phones, fidgeting with coffee stirrers. Lucia entered quietly, her uniform neatly pressed, hair tied back. "Bom dia," she said gently. "Bem-vindos ao Langston Grand." Oh, every head turned. The room shifted, shoulders relaxed, eye contact sharpened. One man visibly exhaled. Grateful. She moved easily between the guests and Ethan, translating details, tone, nuance. It wasn't just about words. She was reading the room in 2 languages at once. When one of the executives cracked a soft joke in Portuguese, Lucia smiled and replied with a gentle quip of her own. The room chuckled. Ethan didn't understand the exchange, but he didn't need to. He could feel the difference. Connection. Trust. Ease. The meeting wrapped 20 minutes later with handshakes and unexpected warmth. One of the guests turned to Ethan and said in English, "She's better than anyone we've worked with all year. Where did you find her?" Ethan glanced at Lucia, who was already clearing coffee cups without a word. He smiled. "I didn't," he said. "She was always here. I just finally noticed." Lucia was almost back at the staff elevator when she heard her name. "Lucia, wait." Ethan caught up. Slightly winded again. She turned to face him. Calm, as always. But there was a trace of something different in her eyes now. Curiosity. "That was remarkable," he said. "Thank you." "Sir." A looked down, then back at her. "I have a question and a proposition." Lucia raised an eyebrow. "Sir?" Ethan took a breath, chose his words carefully. "This company needs someone who can speak to Pio Plano just in English, but in their language. Someone who understands culture, nuance, detail. You did more than translate today. You built a bridge?" "End of Frowls." She blinked. "I want to offer you a new position," he continued. "Full-time. Executive tier. Cultural liaison for international affairs." End of Frowls. The hallway went quiet. Lucia stood completely still. Not shocked. Just processing. "Me?" she asked. "Yes. You're already doing the job better than anyone we've ever hired for it." End of Frowls. "I don't have a degree," she said slowly. "I know." End of Frowls. "No corporate training." End of Frowls. "I know that, too." Her voice dropped. "And you're not worried how it'll look, promoting a janitor?" Ethan met her eyes without blinking. "No. Because when people ask, I'll tell them the truth. I promoted the most qualified person in the building." Lucia looked down at her hands. They were still damp from wiping a glass door just 10 minutes ago. She let out a soft, dry laugh. I don't even have clothes for an office job. We'll fix that. HR will set you up. New badge. New wardrobe. Whatever you need. Endo. Another beat. Then, in a quiet voice, why me? Ethan didn't hesitate. Because I saw you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9/8 up. Yesterday. Because you've done more with less than most people do with everything. And because I'm tired of overlooking people who do the work no one notices. Lucia crossed her arms, still searching his face. You know people are going to talk. Endo. I don't care. Endo. She let out a breath. I've never had a title before. Endo. Then it's time you did. A long pause stretched between them. Finally, Lucia nodded once. Not a yes, but a willingness to try. Let's see if I can keep up with you people upstairs. Ethan smiled. You're already ahead of us. By Tuesday morning. The news had traveled faster than the elevators. Lucia, more or less the night shift housekeeper, had been promoted to an executive position. And just like that, everyone suddenly remembered who she was. Whispers filled the hotel's back hallways and boardrooms alike. No official announcement had been made yet. But word spread the way it always did in places like this, fast. Sharp. And half wrong. She speaks 9 languages. Someone muttered. I heard she used to work for the UN. Another added, no. Someone else scoffed. This is just PR. Langston's trying to check a diversity box. In the staff lounge, 2 marketing assistants leaned close over their salads. I have a master's in international business. One said under her breath, I've been here 4 years and I'm still waiting for a manager role. And this woman was scrubbing floors last week? Her friend shrugged. Maybe she knows something we don't. Embole, please. She's lucky. That's all. Just another social media stunt waiting to happen. Embole. The resentment wasn't always loud. Sometimes it came in the form of polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Or questions that sounded supportive but weren't. Do you need help setting up your email? Wow. It must be such a big shift for you. Right? It's so inspiring to see someone like you in that role. Someone like you? And Lucia heard it all. She didn't react. She never did. But she noticed. When she stepped into her new office on the 14th floor for the first time, it was quiet most. Too quiet. Just a desk. A chair. A nameplate that still read reserved. HR was working on the official sign. She sat for a moment and looked around. The room smelled like citrus and air conditioning. Not bleach. Not sweat. For a moment, she felt like an imposter. Like she'd picked up a key that wasn't hers. She opened her bag and, without thinking, placed something in her drawer. Her old housekeeping ID badge. Not to hold on to the past, but to remind herself how far she'd come. Down the hall. Someone passed by and muttered, let's see how long this lasts. So, Lucia heard it. Loud and clear. But instead of shrinking, she stood up and walked to the glass door. She may have entered this floor by invitation, but she planned to earn every square inch of it. The email was short. Cold. Subject. Meeting request. Eleanor Craig. Time. 4 p.m. Location. 17th floor. Executive Conference Room B. No greeting. No explanation. Lucia read it twice. Then check the name again. Eleanor Craig. Senior board member. With the company since the 90s. Known for 2 things. Sharp suits and sharper judgment. She arrived 5 minutes early. The room was still, air-conditioned to near freezing. At the head of the table, sat Eleanor Immaculate, unreadable. A folder closed neatly in front of her. Lucia stood at the threshold. You asked to see me. Mom, have a seat, Eleanor said without looking up. Lucia sat, folding her hands. Eleanor finally looked up. Let's get straight to it. Shall we? Lucia nodded. I've reviewed your file. Eleanor continued. No college degree. No certifications. No corporate experience. Until last week. You were, let's be accurate, a janitor. M. Lucia didn't flinch. That's correct. M. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. So help me understand how someone with your background is now handling high-level international affairs. M. Lucia held her gaze. Calm. Unapologetics. Because I speak the languages. I understand the cultures. This week alone, I've translated 4 vendor contracts, resolved a delay with our Moroccan partners, and salvaged a meeting that almost fell apart over miscommunication. Eleanor blinked just once. You think this company should be run on instinct and charm? No. Mom, Lucia replied. I think it should be run on results. The silence that followed was thick. Lucia leaned forward slightly. I don't need to be liked. I don't need applause. But I do need to be useful. And I am. Then, for the first time, Eleanor closed the folder slowly, eyes narrowing, not in anger, something more like surprise. You're a gamble, she said. I'm used to that. Lucia answered. My whole life's been one. Then, the meeting ended 10 minutes later. No compliments. No warmth. Just a curt nod. As Lucia walked out, her heart pounded. Not with fear, with fire. She didn't win her spot by climbing a ladder. She built a door and walked through it. And nothing was going to push her back out now. Wednesday morning, the company's North African expansion team gathered in conference room 9A. The project had been stalled for months, contracts, backlogged, trust evaporating, miscommunications, delays, cultural blind spots. Tensions were rising. Executives were frustrated. One even suggested shelving the deal. Lucia had read the reports. All of them. So when the invite came to sit in, not speak, just observe, she said, yes, quietly, without fanfare. At 10:04 a.m., she walked in wearing a soft beige blazer, neutral heels, hair pulled back tight. She carried no laptop, no stack of papers, just a pen and a notepad. 3 Moroccan delegates sat across the table. Formal, reserved, their body language stiff, eyes wary. The meeting began. Small talk, proposals, slide deck. Translations provided by a third-party agency were clumsy, riddled with errors. One delegate flinched at a word used to describe regional custom sit was borderline insulting. The room began to feel heavy again. Then, without warning, Lucia spoke. In fluent, elegant Moroccan Arabic. She didn't interrupt. She entered the conversation. The air changed instantly. Chairs shifted. Heads turned. One of the Moroccan men leaned forward, visibly surprised, then visibly relieved. Lucia spoke not like a guest, but like someone who understood the space, the tone, the unspoken rules. She didn't dominate the room. She recalibrated it. She clarified a misinterpreted clause, smoothed over a cultural misstep. And when one of the delegates joked gently in Arabic just to test Hersha, replied with a subtle, clever retort that earned genuine laughter. It wasn't just translation. It was respect. It was presence. By the end of the meeting, The lead delegate turned to her directly, placing a hand over his chest, a traditional sign of deep gratitude. "No one's ever done that for us," he said. "Not in our language. Not like that." "Ember," Lucia nodded. "You matter? That's all." Ember, back in the hallway. Ethan Langston was waiting outside. He didn't ask how it went. He didn't have to. The energy trailing behind Lucia said enough. "You changed the entire dynamic in there," he said quietly. "I just spoke their language." She replied, "No." Ethan said, "You made them feel seen?" Ember, and for the first time in this company's long, polished history, the quietest voice in the building was now the most powerful one in the room. It started as a conversation over coffee. Late Thursday afternoon. Ethan found Lucia in the break room alone, stirring tea, staring out the window as a storm rolled in. He joined her without a word, handed her a sugar packet she hadn't asked for. She smiled faintly, took it. "I've been thinking," he said, "about how many Lucias we probably walk past every day." She didn't respond immediately, just kept stirring. "You're not the only one with talent hiding behind a mop, or a mail cart, or a food tray." "Heather," she nodded slowly. "No, I'm not." "Heather." Ethan took a sip of coffee. "So why aren't we looking harder?" Lucia turned to him. "Because no one expects brilliance in a uniform, and no one invests in people they think are invisible." "Heather." That landed. Ethan set his cup down. "I want to change that," he said. "Not just with you, with everyone. I want to build something. A program, internal, for staff at every level: housekeeping, security, kitchen, admin, language training, leadership mentoring, cross-department visibility. Everything they're not supposed to get unless they're wearing a suit." Lucia's eyes narrowed not with skepticism, but curiosity. "What would it be called?" she asked. Ethan looked at her, smiled. Voice within. She smiled back. This time, it reached her eyes. "You want me to help build it? I want you to lead it." Lucia paused, then nodded. "I already started," she said. "What do you mean?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a wrinkled notebook. "I've been writing names. People I've met over the years. A dishwasher who knows 5 languages. A night guard who used to be a university professor. A front desk clerk with an MBA from Mumbai." Ethan blinked. She set the notebook on the table, tapping the cover. "They're not invisible. We just haven't looked close enough." 2 weeks later, the Voice Within initiative launched quietly. No press release. No ribbon cutting. Just a single email from the CEO. "We're no longer asking where people went to school. We're asking what they know and what they're capable of. We are listening now." And at the bottom, one line in bold: "Brilliance has no dress code." And Lucia didn't just open a door for herself. She built a hallway full of them. The ballroom lights dimmed. The Logistics Leadership Summit in Cincinnati wasn't exactly known for soul-stirring speeches. But that was about to change. Lucia Morales stepped onto the stage in a charcoal blazer and soft gray heels. No teleprompter. Just a handheld mic and her story. Behind her, the screen simply read, "Talent has no dress code." She began slowly. "I was never just a janitor," she said, voice steady. "I was fluent. I was capable. I was ready. But nobody ever looked long enough to see it." The room fell silent. She told them about her parents, her sister's accident, dropping out of NYU, working nights, learning languages in secret between shifts, the forgotten years. Then, she looked out at the audience, hundreds of managers, directors. VP Sand asked a question that cut clean. How many people have you walked past this week and never really seen? A few heads bowed. How many resumes did you ignore because the email address sounded unprofessional? How many accents made you assume someone didn't understand? Instead of realizing they understand two worlds better than you ever will, someone in the second row wiped their eye. Lucia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence was louder than volume. I wasn't promoted out of pity. She continued, I was promoted because one day, someone finally asked the right question, not, what do you do? But, what do you know? She paused. Do you want to change your company's future? She asked. A few people nodded instinctively. Then start by changing what you look for. Start by believing that brilliance might be wearing the wrong shoes, speaking the wrong dialect, working the night shift. But it's there, and it's waiting. She stepped back. No dramatic bow. No catchphrase. Just truth. Raw. Real. Unapologetics. Then someone in the back stood up, clapping. Then another. Then the whole room. Not because she was inspirational. Because she was undeniable. Outside the ballroom, a young man in a rental suit waited with damp palms. He stopped her gently. My mom's a housekeeper, he said. She speaks 5 languages. I used to be ashamed of that. Lucia touched his arm. Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance. And with that, she walked out of the building, not as the janitor who got lucky, but as the woman who reminded a whole industry to start looking down so they can finally lift people up. 3 weeks later, the hallway outside Lucier's office looked a little different. There was a new plaque on the wall. Simple. Brushed steel. No gold. No glass. Just her name. Lucia Morales. Cultural Liaison. Director. Voice within initiative. People stopped to read it. Some smiled. Some paused a little longer than they used to. Inside, Lucia sat at her desk, responding to a handwritten letter. Another one. They came almost every day. Now notes from staff across the company. Bellhops. Dishwashers. Admins. All writing the same thing in different words. I didn't think someone like me could be seen. Lucia folded the letter gently, placed it in a box marked Letters to Remember. Then she reached into her drawer and pulled out her old housekeeping badge. Faded. Bent. She didn't look at it with sadness. She looked at it with gratitude. That uniform hadn't erased her identity. It had revealed her strength. Later that evening, as the sun melted into the city skyline, Lucia stayed late to finish onboarding 3 new hires from the Voice Within program. One of them, a young Vietnamese girl named Tien Was, painfully shy but bright-eyed. Before leaving, Tien hesitated in the doorway. Miss Morales? Lucia looked up. Yes? Tien took a breath. How did you survive being invisible so long? Lucia leaned back in her chair, smiled softly. I wasn't invisible, she said. I just hadn't been seen yet. And Tien nodded. Eyes misty. Then left. That night, Lucia walked through the hotel's main lobby not as staff, not as guest, just as herself. And something happened. The bellman at the door nodded with respect. A concierge stopped her. Miss Morales, I've got that French memo ready if you want to review it. A guest stepped aside for her. No one whispered. No one stared. She didn't walk faster. She didn't shrink. She didn't apologize for the space she occupied. She just kept walking. because this was hers now. Not the job, not the title, but the right to take up space and somewhere in a break room or a maintenance hallway or a back office, someone else would feel a little taller tomorrow because of that. Because Lucia Morales had held the door open and left it unlocked.